First on the Breakfast Club, we're talking about a move that's bringing a lot of relief and a whole lot of hope for women. Karnataka has rolled out a major new step for women in the workplace. One paid menstrual leave every month across both government and private sectors. This is the first time any state has introduced a uniform policy such as this. And honestly, it's long overdue, as has been demanded by women for years now. The idea is pretty straightforward. Any woman between 18 and 52 gets one paid day off each month. No medical certificates required, no awkward explanations that employees owe to their bosses. And this applies to each and every sector: factories, IT companies, MNCs, shops, government offices, basically any workplace registered under labor laws. But this leave will not carry over to the next month. So that's an if and but that comes with it. And here's the thing. This isn't about extra time off, it's actually about health. A lot of women deal with real, sometimes crippling pain during their periods. Doctors keep reminding us that pushing through severe symptoms isn't bravery. It can actually hurt long-term health. Menstrual leave is about giving women space to rest and recover instead of expecting them to quietly endure discomfort at work. Supporters are calling this a big progressive step, one that finally puts women's health and dignity at the center of workplace policy. But of course, there's another side to the conversation, something we will be decoding. Some employers, especially smaller businesses, are worried about staffing. Others fear this might unintentionally create hiring bias, where companies hesitate to hire women only because they assume extra leave. Legally, it's interesting too. The Supreme Court, remember, in the past has already said that menstrual leave is a policy choice for governments to make, and that making it mandatory across the country could have unintended effects. There's still no national law on this, remember. There is, to a large extent, state implementation we've seen across the country. The picture, though, remains patchy. Bihar, Odisha do offer menstrual leave just to government employees. Karnataka universities, at least some of them, provided to students as well. But now Karnataka is going to be the first. It's going to go all out and extend this one leave per month to every registered workplace. Every woman gets to avail this leave. The real question, though, is can menstrual leave create a healthier, more supportive workplace for women without becoming another obstacle in their journey? Let's decode that and a lot more. So we're being joined this morning by Meghna Pant, who is an author herself, alongside Dr. Nitika Sobti, Senior Director and Head Gynecologist, Fortis Hospital, Gurugram. Thank you to both you ladies for joining us this morning. It's an interesting conversation, and all ladies panel, so looks great for a Monday morning. If I can begin with you, Meghna, how do you look at this? There are two aspects that need to be spoken of. We'll go across to the doctor for the health aspect and why this is the need of the hour, long overdue, as we've been discussing. But what does it do to a woman in a workplace? How many pluses and minuses do you think come with this move?
No, I think the first thing we need to keep in mind is that this is not a battle of the sexes. It's a test of whether India is kind of finally ready to design laws that are humane, neutral, and rooted in reality, not biases. And I think it's also time to end the taboo around women's menstruation in the country and speak up, because periods are normal and no woman should be ashamed of it. And you know this as well. Yes. As women, we are paying over and over again for this natural act. We're told we're dirty, we're polluted, we're cursed, we're impure. We're not allowed to enter religious places or ceremonies. We're told that anything we touch will rot. We're told to use old fabric and plastic because pads are too expensive. So let's be real, first of all. If cisgender men bled for 5 days a month, or got pregnant, or breastfed, or gave childbirth and still showed up to meetings, we would not even be debating this. So Karnataka's menstruation leave today, we would not be even talking about it. We'd have labs racing to invent zero pain periods, or gold-plated breast pumps, and a padman who actually sat on the board of Fortune 500. What we have instead are women who are quietly popping Meftal in office bathrooms and almost apologizing for their biology. Illiteracy rates of girls are high because by the time they hit the 7th standard, they drop out of school on Minash. So, and one more thing which a lot of people do not know is that 88% of our 497 million women, they don't even use sanitary napkins because they're too expensive for them. So what we need to make absolutely clear is that compassion is not the same as chivalry, and rights are not revenge. we don't need laws that pedestalize women into devi, but neither do we need policies that are penalizing women into becoming a Diana. Spare us both the worship and the witch hunt. It's the same patriarchy in different saris. So I think what we need to focus on is that menstrual leave should be inside a gender neutral, biology aware sort of framework that recognizes also trans men, non binary folks, and men's reproductive health needs as well, like ED, infertility, or prostate health. And anti discrimination safeguards must ensure that women are not penalized in either hiring or promotions or appraisals for using this leave.
Yeah.
And one more thing we need to do is data has to be tracked on the uptake, the productivity and retention and wage gaps. So let's not roll back the rights, let's refine these rights. So when we talk about Karnataka's menstrual leave, let's not clap sort of mechanically because it's good for women, but at the same time, let's not panic that the economy will collapse because of this. So let's ask harder questions. I think that's what the policies is going to do to women at the workplace in the long term. Will it make workplaces kinder without turning women into weaker employees? And does it move us towards gender equality, or is it going to just add more labels to an already over-labeled gender? So I think it should not be radical nor cosmetic. It should be a bridge to equality. I think that's how we should.
So if this or that is not the answer, where is the answer exactly? Where does the answer lie? I think that's the biggest challenge in front of us as a society, to understand what best can be done to ensure that this is not going against women no matter what. Dr. Nikita, how do you view this from a health perspective? Tell us a little bit about a woman menstruating, what it does to her productivity, because that's where we need to begin with. Why this was thought of? Why is this the need of the hour? Why is this even being spoken of across the country? Give us a few reasons, doctor.
See, very importantly, I feel it's like a standard health accommodation. Now, if we actually see, about 70 to 90% of all women are experiencing dysmenorrhea. Irregular menstruation is to the tune of 20 to 27%. Premenstrual syndrome, which we actually consider it is very normal, everybody does have it, that is also to the tune of 40 to 80%. Are we really handling that part? Are we really talking about women that this is the need of the hour? And when we actually did some stats, because we keep on going and educating so many people in offices, in corporates, in schools, they hardly come up with their issues because it's not something which is talked about and respected. So that is where we really need to take charge. The incidents told us it's about a 1.3 day off per year. And now we are giving 12 days off per year. But if we actually calculate, when we were not doing it, we were anyways taking 8.3 days off, meaning absenteeism. You are coming here, but you are unwell. So you are present in that. So there is no absenteeism, but there is presenteeism. You are working, but you are unwell. So that is a 8.3, anyways you're doing it. But when they actually formulated the whole policy, we were being talked to, we were being discussing this thing. They said you will gain more than 12 days if you actually give that 1 day off. Because it will give women that sense of respect. It will create more friendly atmosphere in the office. And we'll be able to break that bias of talking to a woman about this, As Meghna absolutely rightly said, we are all the time being pinpointed. What is right, what is not. It is actually going parallel to the maternity policy. It's nothing which is less. We should offer it to them because, and moreover, I always tell, even if there is something which is very urgent, we have other staggered work options. We have remote hope options. Everybody who's being given that respect and that whole aura, she will anyways not let anything wrong happen to the workspace also. No? So that much sensitivity every woman does carry. But we need to address their health issue first. We need to make sure that we care. And once they know we care, and I think we all women respect that one value, that if we are cared for, we will go anywhere out of the world to do anything right and best for our home, country, child and society. That much I think we all three can assure to the world. This is a fact.
Dr. Nitika, you may have had these interactions with your patients already. Tell us from an interaction perspective, how do you see this? How do you see women react to this? Especially because even if this is a provision which is a pan-India reality tomorrow, women may be labelled for being on their period. Now that is something that women surely don't want. Why should you have to tell anyone why you're taking an off? In this case, in Karnataka's case, surely you don't have to submit a medical certificate, you don't owe anybody an explanation.
Yes.
But isn't there a little bit
Yes.
of a fear that that feeling of being held accountable for taking that
I
one
agree.
off is
Yes.
something that worries women?
See, the point is anything when we start new, that sensitivity training will be there. We have to train our HR managers and they will get trained. Once it is a policy, that means nation has actually saw that this is really needed. So that has to be done, I agree. But whether we are talking about it or not, this is a fact and everybody knows about it. And as Meghna generally said, it's something natural. We need to accept it and move forward. Now, if somebody is pregnant or somebody is breastfeeding, they are given that, respect and dignity. So this is the first step to actually create life. So we need to understand the sensitivity of this menstruation cycle. And when I'm talking about a 90% experiencing, dysmenorrhea, it may be mild to severe, I agree, but it is something which is being felt for at least 3 to 4 days in a month. So the minimum we can do is give 1 day. And all this sensitization, if it happens with the HR people, I'm sure it will be accepted. And I'm really happy that one state has actually taken that as their thing, and this is going to replicate.
And
And a healthier woman will definitely be better in
Dr.
performing
Nitika, you
also.
spoke of a few medical conditions, a few
Yeah,
difficulties
yes,
women
yes.
experience during menstruation.
Absolutely,
Tell us where,
yes.
if at all you're sitting on this pain, if at all you're leaving it unaddressed, if at all in the garb of working, making it to work,
Yes.
non-stop meetings during those few hours or days, if you're ignoring your health, can that have a long-term impact on your body?
Absolutely, absolutely. Our fertility potentials are dependent on our menstruation cycle. We may be carrying so many problems. We may be having fibroids, endometriosis, and endometriosis causes severe pain. And it is the least talked and discussed. How many girls who are having this pain, how many of them are getting an ultrasound done? I would say not even 1%. I'm telling you, even in metros, not even 10%. You forget the other places. So we are ignoring it. But once there is some severity, and at least not at the school time, if we come on to the time when we are working, we can at least concentrate on our health. So this will create, a whole focus on the basic women right of their reproductive health. So it's not just that 1 day in a month, it's going to create a sensation all across, that it will really make women very clear that they need to take charge of their reproductive health and they can easily talk about it and go. So it is just as parallel as a maternity that this will become.
Okay. Meghna, now zooming out a little bit, how can companies implement this policy at the same time also reinforce the whole idea or ensure that the stigma that comes with menstrual leave, which is that women are less capable during menstruation, is also something that we keep at a safe distance?
Absolutely. That's such a good point you're making. Culture can actually kill a good policy. So if you look at, say, Japan or South Korea, the uptake of this menstrual leave is surprisingly low because women are actually fearing the stigma, the career backlash, and being perceived as weak. So, a poll in South Korea was conducted that 20% of women only actually use this leave despite being entitled to it. And recent studies are also showing that, young women are worrying about it, that it will increase stigma against them. So what we need to do is we need to look at the fine print for, say, Karnataka, and we need to design this menstrual leave in a good way so that it doesn't just become this sort of pink wash trap or a trope, right? So first of all, let's look at the data. Like Doctor correctly pointed out, the productivity actually goes up when presenteeism has gone down. So when you see that menstrual leave is taken, it can actually improve productivity and retention. The IMF, in fact, has estimated that if Indian women participate in the workforce at the same rate as men, right, our GDP could actually go up by around 27%. So keeping women in the workforce is not a gift. It's actually economic strategy. So let's look at it in that way. The other thing is ignoring reproductive health is actually more expensive. So Australia, there was a study done that it would actually cost businesses around, say, $920 million a year for period leave. So what would happen is that the current productivity loss from unmanaged reproductive health issues would be much more. It was to the tune of $26 billion. And the message is very simple. The writing is on the wall that you either pay for rest or you pay much more for burnout. So I think that's what we really need to look at. Look at the actual numbers. Data points in India are not yet available, which is also something we need to focus on. But let's look at people who have actually implemented, countries that have implemented, companies that have implemented this. And the stats and finances are showing that it's actually better and economically more viable to give menstruation leave.
Yeah.
And let's see, one more thing is, employers, there's a lot of biases. Colleagues will resent women for getting what they perceive as bonus holidays. Employers will quietly stop hiring women in this age bracket of 18 to 45 because they'll perceive them as too expensive. And women are also internalizing.
But could there also be a flip side to it, Meghna? Could women,
yes,
could be a smaller section, but could they also end up misusing menstrual leaves? And is that a fair or legitimate concern?
Which is why, Christine, what we need to do is to implement it in a way, say suppose dowry laws have been misused in the country, adultery laws have been misused in the country. We need to set up balances and systems that are equal to both gender, that to all genders, actually, even transgenders and non-binary people. And I mentioned that earlier also, that even men's reproductive health should be brought into the fore. This is not a gender war. This is all of us against a system that is not working. So I think we need to understand that we're allies in this. And what we need to really reinforce is that this leave will actually reduce absenteeism. It needs to be presented and implemented properly. Data points need to be collected. Economic sense also, the viability of it also needs to make economic sense. So let's present those data points. Let's normalize conversations around pain, and reproductive health for all genders. And I think that's what...
If this were to be limited to, let's say, just women in workplaces, Meghna, you think that they're going to be sooner or later at the receiving end of some sort of professional isolation, that instead of bridging gender gap, this could actually further, create the gap?
That's a very, very good and very, nuanced point.
Because any employer would then say that I might as well, and this is the reality of today's day and age, that the employer would say, I'd rather hire a man, I'd rather hire a male employee.
This is something that has come up very often, that signal that women's bodies are liabilities in the system and not assets. And I saw this even during Me Too, where a lot of men said that we're not going to hire women because they'll speak up against false cases. So again, I'm saying that the trick now, what we need to focus on is to implement it. It must, menstruation leave must be made compulsory, but the way we implement it must also be fair to everybody, including the employer and employee, and to all genders. So I think if we make it in a fair way and not be biased towards either gender, because remember, this is not about putting women on a pedestal or penalizing them. This is about doing something that is fair. This is about doing something that will balance the equation that is stacked against women's bodies. And again, remember, women's bodies are not liabilities. That should be the point made home, like maternity leave also, right? Bring in a little paternity leave, and that kind of equalize the balance. So we need to do similar things that equalize the workspace and let women also be part of a system that celebrates this. Remember, it's very normal and we need to normalize this. But again, systems have to be put in place that nobody is biased against, that nobody is inconvenienced because of it. And I think that's the way to go forward.
Okay. Dr. Nitika, very quickly, what do you think are the misconceptions around menstruation in a workplace? Since we're speaking of workplace, and you can tell us about your personal experiences you've had so far. If people come to you complaining, this is how people look at me if I'm menstruating, or if I'm in pain, or if I need a chutti. Have you heard that kind of feedback? If yes, what is it?
See, basically, I'll be very honest. People come to me and they come to me with severe pain, and we do give them injectables. They come with their co-workers, colleagues. They are very compassionate at that level. But a pain which does not require an injection, it's absolutely normal for everybody. Because everybody is only seeing women working. They will just keep popping a Meftal or keep doing something. But it's very, very less that anybody is going to be that sensitized till the time she either faints or she falls or she's having very heavy bleeding. And the heavy bleeding incidence is about 10 to 20%. That is also not less. But are we taking charge of it? So we are still very much tuned in that manner that till the women is absolutely in that state and shape that she cannot work, she will not come to us. And every day I'm telling you, I do see, if not every day 1 to 2, at least in a week I see 5 to 6 women do coming to my OPD, not an emergency, with severe pain, and they are generally in the bracket of 18 to 40. Over 40, I see less women because they have actually, settled and they are sorted and they have been coming to us for checkups. So we manage that part. But between 18 to 30, 32, I have many, many women coming.
And how many of those women,
talking.
Dr. Nitika, when you're prescribing them medicines or they're in so much pain that they need to rest up, that they're not going to be able to make it to work, how many of them ask you to give them, and this is a slightly notorious question, but how many of them are embarrassed or they feel shamed about actually getting a medical certificate which says this in as many words?
They don't ask. They don't ask, dear. They will never ask me a medical leave for this.
And if at all they say
medical leave for fever, but not for menstruation issues. They will ask me a medicine and they go back to work. That's actually a fact that I'm sharing with you. Because there is a lot of stigma and taboo around that whole thing. But I think this will be the first step to actually make it something normal, and we have to train our people, our HR managers. They have to be sensitized, and they will be. It is just like a maternity leave. It is just like promoting breastfeeding in workplaces and everywhere in the public, making it safe for them. So this is the first step, I think.
Okay, and very quickly before we wrap up this conversation, so very thought-provoking, Meghna, I want to leave on this positive note on what can be done. We've spoken of what more needs to be done, but coming down to implementation really, and especially the story begins with employers. If they need to be educated about menstrual health, how should that process shape up and take place?
So let's look at it as menstruation leave can either be radical or it can be cosmetic. It can be a bridge to equality, or it can be a fresh excuse to sideline women. So the difference is lying in how we are going to write this law, how are we going to implement it, and honestly, how are we going to examine our own biases, right? So I think we need to basically focus on the end goal, that let's enable women to work and live with a little more dignity. This is required not just morally, but also economically and legally. So I feel Karnataka's this new menstrual leave policy, this one paid day off every month across government and private sectors, it's going to benefit over 50 lakh women. I think it's a very historic moment, and it's time we recognize that menstrual health is not just a ladies' issue. It's a labor issue, it's a productivity issue, and ultimately it's a human
And is there an ideal model we can replicate or think of, aim for? Japan, Indonesia, we've spoken of a couple of countries, though the number of women availing that leave is still very low, as Meghna pointed out. But is there a model that we can, to an extent, replicate here, pan-India? Meghna.
I think, so Japan, for example, they have menstrual leave, but it's often unpaid, it's, culturally underutilized. South Korea is offering also the same thing, but they actually give you extra pay if you don't take it. That's very interesting. So that's something we can learn from. Taiwan actually gives 3 days a year of partial pay. And also countries like, say, Indonesia, Vietnam, Zambia, they're also providing some form of menstrual leave. Spain, of course, went from 3 days to 5 days of paid leave per month. But, I think that's also pushing it too much, which would explain the economics of the country as well. So I think what we need to do is to present medical certificates. Let's put systems in place that is fair to everybody, to employers and employees. And I think what we should replicate is, I think, the South Korea model, where they offer 1 day a month, but they give you extra pay if you don't take it. So in that way, it kind of, for women who don't need it, I think it's a good policy to have. I think it'll keep systems and biases also in check.
The intent should be to bridge gender gap, most importantly, not widen gender gap in workplaces across the country. Thank you so much to the both of you for coming in with your wonderful perspectives. Really helped us piece together this entire story. We head into a very quick break on The Breakfast Club. Coming up next, we go across to our person of interest. This is a Bihar youth leading farming revolution in his state. He has changed the story for farmers in Purnia. We'll go across to him in just a bit. We'll be right back.